Hello! It's quite late here and other people are asleep, so I'm at the electric piano tonight. Although it might not upload until the morning, so we'll see. But I wanted to do a bit more on the jazz because I've had a couple of, well, there's a few reasons I wanted to anyway, but I've had a couple of really insightful comments from someone who I'm really sorry, I can't remember the name, but they were really good. And I'll have to check what the other points were, but the first one I wanted to go through just to process, and if anyone has any kind of points that I may have misinterpreted or want to add to, please, I'm always willing to hear people's opinions. It's actually really nice to have other people who are interested in this stuff talking to me in the comments. It's super nice. So the first thing was the idea that in jazz the 5/1 is really important. And I think when you think about it enough, this is true in almost all classical music. It's just that in jazz the chords seem to be more malleable, so that just because it says, for example, G minor 7 to C minor 7 to F, that doesn't actually stop you from playing like a G dominant 7 to C dominant 7 to F, or at least hinting at those notes. And I think that goes some way to explaining why this is a chord in jazz. That kind of thing, where you've got the dominant 7 here, but you've got the major third turning that into a dominant 7 chord. And you've also got the minor 7 at the top. The difference is, I think, that in music, in the music I'm used to, that is not jazz, that is a specific effect called a false relation, and maybe it is in jazz too, but I don't know. So that is definitely a chord you will hear in classical music. If you go into old Renaissance choral music stuff, you'll hear that fleetingly, that kind of false relation thing. In that kind of context, or really romantic stuff, you'll hear it too, going like... That does sound jazzy there, that last one. But you hear the idea, especially after like a dramatic line. For example, to improvise, that kind of thing doesn't sound out of place in a romantic style. But the fact is, in those styles, it has to resolve. So just this is not good enough for those styles. You need less tension, basically, and more release. And that's another thing I'm going to get onto later, my understanding of it anyway. But for me, it seems like in jazz, it's enough to play that chord, and then this chord, or probably not that chord, maybe not even that chord. Who knows? I don't understand this stuff at all. But in classical, this is the problem. It's too easy to oversimplify with definitions. So I'm talking classical and jazz, and I don't want to get too wrapped up in subdividing the genres in classical. So that is not enough in classical. You have to be walking through the diminished chord. And probably pulling the 7 into a prominent place there that resolves to there. Or keeping the G at the bottom and keeping the G pedal going. And eventually it'll feel like it does come to a resolution. So that's the kind of music I'm used to. So just hearing what for me are two dissonances, this, and then this. That was boggling my mind because I was like, well, dissonance to dissonance, it's like none of this means anything. But I was wrong, I think. The dissonance, the amount of dissonance is clearly different when you hear that. So the other chord I heard something like this. Go down here. Leading to this one. I think anyone can hear that those two chords are different levels of dissonance. This one has so much unresolved tension. And this one is pretty consonant. And the only thing for me is that this probably wants to do that next. Like that C minor chord is not resolved enough for me yet, and this B flat feels like a descending melodic minor that wants to go. So I'd have to incorporate the rest of that into the effect if I was playing it in my style. Like. So eventually it'll settle back to something super consonant, super just triad-y, 3 notes at a time. So that's something I have to get my head around to start with. I think I've dealt with accidentally the second point first, which was this idea of dissonance, and what it means in different styles. Because that is certainly true in classical music too. In the classical era, you would never hear that chord in a million years, but in the Romantic era, you probably would as a passing note. And actually, if you go back, you probably would hear in the Baroque, in some really taut kind of Baroque styles, as in taut like tight. Some really complicated moments in fugues will have way more dissonant chords than that too. But the problem is they all resolve to something that settles. So although that tension can go on for a long time, it has this push towards triads, and it's just that because the tension, as it's getting closer to that place it would resolve, the triad has already moved to something else, so the tension remains. I'm trying to think of an example, so... that kind of thing, so it's like... it's a different point really, but that pedal, that would be lots of dissonance. I can't improvise anything more complex than that because it is incredibly detailed and well thought out harmony most of the time in Baroque music. Yeah, I'm not going to try and find something on the fly, but maybe I'll find something for a different video. There is one bit in Bach that I wanted to mention. So this is going back to the idea of this kind of every chord in jazz. And I suppose this is an oversimplification too, but every chord in jazz can be a 5 for the next chord. As a general rule of thumb, that's something I hadn't really thought of either. But when you look at the progressions, it makes perfect sense. So this one I've been learning, this I've got rhythm thing. If you replace everything but the first chord, and there will be a way to move the first chord so it feels like a dominant if you wanted to. Again, in classical, like... Each one of those chords can be a 5 for the next one. So I kind of understand that logic now, including in the next bit, so where it goes F minor 7. Oh, we'll just do F minor to B flat 7, to E flat minor, to D minor. Now that one is a bit of a jump, but I think I kind of understand the logic again. So F minor, an F is a 5 for a B flat. So if you do that, it feels like a 5. Then the B flat is already a 5 for the E flat, and the E flat isn't a 5 for D, but this is where I think you have to be a bit creative. If you do instead this C sharp, prominent C sharp, can be a 5, or at least lead very carefully to the next chord, so it doesn't sound like it's going to link, and I can't make it link very well. And then this can be a 5 for the G, which can be a 5 for the C, which can be a 5 for the final 5, which leads back to 1, which could be a 5 for something else. You see what I mean? So it it follows that logic in this song, and I'm sure it does in many others too, that if you try hard enough, each of those chords is a dominant chord for the next. But that isn't anything new to me particularly. It's just I hadn't thought about it in this context. And in fact, I hadn't retrospectively thought about it in the context of music where I recognise that sound too. So, for example, just think this is a really simple chord progression that is in loads of classical music too. Dee, dum, 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 da, da, dee, dum. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. But I never think about it like that, and I'm not playing it as dominant chords. But if you were to imagine you were transposing to each key. Each time, it is 5 to 5. Let's go through it. So, again, listen to the chords again. We'll stick with just that, because that I just repeated the last time. So, F, you might want to get a circle of fifths out. F is a fifth away from B flat, which means it's 5 to 1. B flat is a fifth away from E flat, 5 to 1. E flat is a fifth away from A flat. In this context, we go to D because we want to retain the sense of key. So if you were doing this purely, you would go to D flat. But going to D is still a fifth away, just not a perfect fifth. It's a diminished fifth. And the D is a fifth away from the G, which is a fifth away from the C, which is where we came from in the beginning. So we make that circle of fifths goes from C to C, but we had to take a few shortcuts. Our shortcut was not doing a full perfect fifth from A flat to D. We cut all the way across the circle of fifths by going from A flat to D natural rather than D flat, which led us nicely back to G, which led us back to C. So I'm going to demonstrate that full circle of fifths instead, so you can hear how much of a shortcut we've taken and how it's helped us cement us in C minor. So the original. And we're back already. If you go the long route, I'm going to have to think about this carefully. Now the problem is I'm lost at C now. Now it's just 5 to 5, but we'll keep going anyway. And now finally we're back at C. So I couldn't think of an elegant way to do that on the fly, so I just did dominance every time. But there is definitely an elegant way to go from one key, circle of fifth for a bit, to another key, circle of fifth for a bit, and then go all the way around the circle of fifths back to one. It's just that I suspect in jazz and in other styles, the shortcuts are taken so that we don't have to go on endless loops every single time. And I think the shortcuts here, can you remember that bit in the middle of I've Got Rhythm where it's F minor to B flat to E flat? That sets us off on the first chain of that 5 5 1. But now we take our shortcut, which is flattening this, and then this note is introduced, which will lead us back to D, which is the 5 of G, which is the 5 of C, which is the 5 of F, which leads us back to B flat. So there's our root round, basically. That's our middle section. We could have started that middle section on a B too, rather than an F minor, and it would have had the same effect. And in fact, I think some versions of this song do that. So you get a B, and it goes to a B7, B flat, sorry. Goes to a B flat 7, leads to an E flat, and then we're on from there. So, I guess that's just a good realization to come to, that 5 5 5 5 5 is always an option, and so you get this ambiguity on some of these chords. That's a perfect cadence in my language, with a false relation and a weird E flat suspension. Like, for me, for that to feel finished, that needs to resolve down to there. This either needs to take the long route to the G, or it needs to just kind of inelegantly go up to the B natural and then resolve like that. But that's not going to happen because it sounds a bit clunky, right, in jazz again. So I want to go to a section in Bach, which is part of a Bach prelude, which I love this piece. I'm going to show you two different sections. We'll talk about this one first. This is just an example. The first thing I thought of, where it's like, oh, 5 to 5 to 5 to 5 to 5 to 5, never ending, and that's A flat to D flat. This is basically jazz harmony, by the way, to my ears at least. The only difference is it resolves, so we actually finally get something consonant at the very end. But that's a chain of tension, 5 to 5 to 5 to 5. And if we look at the names of the chords, A flat to D flat to ambiguous, G to C to F to B flat minor to E flat to A flat, 5 to 5 to 5 to 5 to 5, A flat to D, a G to C, F to B flat, E flat to A flat, and I think it continues from there. D flat somewhere. I'm not going to get into the rest, but you get the idea. This technique is rampant, and it has been for literally centuries of finding this chain of fifths. We just call it the circle of fifths. We say, oh, it's a bit of a section where there's a circle of fifths. But yes, there's an even more beautiful bit later. I might not be able to play this bit, so have a listen there. Oh, I missed it. It's here. Oops, it's this one. So yeah, sorry for my pedal. I haven't learned well enough to do it without. So here, even more beautiful and even more tense. And the first thing I noticed here was this chord. I mean, look at what we've got. So I'm going to break this down again. We've got the B flat, 1, A flat, the 7. There's the 9. Let's fill in the easy gaps first, the 5 and the 3. D flat, sorry. First of all, that's just a jazzy chord, right? That's a 1, 3, 7, 5, a 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 chord, I think. But we also get this extra jazzy moment, the A natural up there. And that is what we spotted earlier. A natural here. And A flat here. And I'm pretty sure if you reverse these, maybe not quite. It doesn't quite work. But I feel like there's something to the fact that this is basically the same exact logic going on. It's just that in Bach we get more, because it's a line, each note follows to the next in a way that we don't build up that tension in our mind. We hear instead. So the A and the A flat aren't actually at the same time. There's a gap. We're playing it as a chord. It's the same logic. We just condense all of that dissonance into one block. I hope you can see where I'm going with this. I haven't fully fleshed out it in my mind either, but it feels like there's some dots connecting somewhere. Turns into this. An E flat 7 chord. Standard in both classical and jazz, I think. And again, it's important to realise that although we get this 7th in the left hand, it's a 7th because the G is prepared from the bar before, and the A flat is part of a sequence that makes it inevitable. So if you listen to the left hand, you'll hear the sequence. So the G and the A flat are not meant to be there together, musically. Of course they are meant to be for musically in the way that it sounds great, but it musically follows that the G has to move to make it work. So our ears are waiting for that moment of resolution. But by the time we get that moment of resolution, we're already onto something different. And so the chain continues. It resolves, but it doesn't resolve quick enough to stop the chain of tension developing from one beat to the next. We want this G to resolve, and we'd be very happy if it just stopped here. There. But it would be very boring and it would kill the momentum. So we don't let that happen. It does resolve, but the right hand adds a new tension, and so does the left hand that has to then resolve. And again, we'd be very happy if we just let that resolve there and we move this B flat up to here. And then that was the end of it, but it continues developing the tension. Like so. So again, I want to play these as block chords now, and let's look out for some things. Again, the false relation of A natural and A flat here. I mean, oh my god, this is just amazing, amazing chords. I love this bit. I've noticed these as chords about a decade ago, and I still, every time I play it, I'm like, oh, it's so good. And then we get a bit more standard blocks. Bang, bang. But again, I suspect we just wouldn't get that resolution, and we wouldn't get the blocks here. In a jazzy style. Anyway, so that's the 5-1 train kind of thing. That's the first thing I thought of. That this is not new. It's just I hadn't recognized it for what it was, which is continuous tension building from 5 to 1 to 5 to 1 until we finally get to a 1 that can't go any further. That we say we need to stop here because this is our key. So we've hit our key at the end, and I suspect it's the same logic. It's somewhere deep down in this style too. I want to quickly look at. I hope the video doesn't freeze. If it does, I'm really sorry. I hope it'll keep recording the audio at least. So the other thing was, yeah, this kind of hierarchy of tension thing. If you take that D7-11 chord and resolve it to a G major 7 chord, focus on the F natural that moves up to the F sharp and the C that moves down to the B. This is a very relaxed sound. So let me try and dissect what on earth that means. So you get a D7, sharp and 11. Well, where the hell's the 11? 7, 9. Can't be that, surely. Can't be. F natural. Oh, maybe that's the 11. Sharp and 9, no? Anyway, so you get this, no? That, I think, is a chord of some kind, or particularly that. Kind of thing, I believe. think it makes no difference. Oh, I'm repeating the C. I don't need to. I could do that for a thinner sound, or I could go. But I'm not sure if you're meant to have both. I suppose I could even have the A in there. 2/4 square, I think. B flat. So. And the C. Oh, I need the C for this example. So focus on the F natural that moves upwards to the F sharp and the C that moves down to the B. Oh. Oh. That's not where I was going in my mind at all. I was hearing. So the fact, this is crazy to me. This is absolutely crazy to me. We are I want to demonstrate this because, okay, let me go back. Hopefully that was still being videoed. I would like to demonstrate this because that was, this is something I need to really think about. Okay, so the logic. The F of this chord resolves upwards to the F sharp of this chord. And in jazz, that is tension to consonance, to resolution. In classical, that note needs to resolve upwards to here to finish. So the idea of this note not being a tension note, this F sharp, but actually being a consonance note in that chord is first of all crazy. But if that's a consonant note in this chord, then that means to build tension towards it, it's not enough to have this note that would resolve to the G. You've got to go one step back again and resolve to that note. That's madness. And so it's like trying to see one layer deeper than I'm actually capable of doing. So this is your G chord, where all of these notes are now consonant, even though this is clearly a semitone, by the way, not so consonant to my ears, but apparently it is. A consonant chord, and this is a dissonant chord. What can we, it doesn't feel right. Must be, right? Okay, I mean, it's just insane to me. So this equivalent here, I'm struggling to break this down in words. Sorry. It's the equivalent of our classical dominant seventh that trips up so many people who aren't familiar with it, where you have your chord, and then you add the seventh note, ba-bam, and you get this dominant seventh. And again, in classical, this is absolutely not a consonant chord. It sounds good, but it's not. Everyone can hear that that's not finished until you go to there. So from here to there. But just doing that in jazz is not enough, because this F sharp has nowhere left to resolve. It's already resolved. That is way too consonant on here and way too consonant on here. That's the equivalent of if our cadence in classical music that had some bite to it was this, which we do have, by the way, called a plagal cadence. I think this is a good equivalent. So we get no bite. It's too consonant. That's too consonant, and that's too consonant. So we only use that when we want a really serene moment, something minor or major. I guess it would be something like that. in a minor key. And our dissonant cadence that resolves dissonance to consonance is this dominant seventh that resolves to here. The equivalent of building up that dominant seventh dissonance in jazz seems to be, because you can have this as a chord, of course, in jazz too, but it sounds so boring, I think, compared to the rest of the interesting chords going on. So this is all consonants in my mind in jazz. This note, and this note. All consonants, and I suppose the A could be in there somewhere too. But if we want to add the equivalent level of dissonance to turn that into a cadential moment that resolves, we need to add an extra layer of dissonance on top of this, to my ears, already dissonant chord. That note. And only then can it resolve to this consonance, which again to my ear is very dissonant, this chord. Oh, right. Now, obviously, I still don't know any of my voicings in a way that sounds authentic. That's something I'm really struggling to develop here, because I'm so stuck in my muscle memory where you get, wide root positions and quite tight thirds at the top. So even when I go through dissonant chords, I'm aware of where it needs to go next. So if I've got something chromatic like I just did, I can hear exactly what needs to resolve there. The B needs to go. Da, 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 I wouldn't be able to do that with these different chords. These are my brain is not following where it needs to go next in the same way. I can't hear and I can't see or imagine a progression. So although I feel like I have the harmonic knowledge to do that kind of thing in my style and go in interesting places, I just cannot follow the same logic, because I think the things that feel like the way I work with this is that the dissonance is the thing I'm really latching onto. So say if I let my hands fall, it's a really good dissonant chord actually, almost impossible for me to resolve. So let's figure out what could be done here to resolve this chord in a way that feels right. So I think the only thing I've got to latch onto is the fact that I've got an A and a C and a G sharp, which aren't part of the same chord. So this is a G sharp in the bass with some appoggiatura kind of things in the right hand and a false relation G on the top. So this is what I'm thinking. It needs to go something like, or feels better if it goes to here, no to here, that's right. So that was an especially dissonant chord, so I'm going to try this again. Okay, that feels like a better one. So instantly the thing that's creeping out to me is that it is a dissonant chord because it's not a normal triad. So this A needs to resolve to the G. Or the G sharp if I want to continue the dissonance and then move one of the Ds to an E. Then I might continue that dissonant train, but eventually it'll resolve to something that makes sense there. Can't remember that chord now, this, isn't it? you can hear in my style there's no lack of dissonance, but I know them all. I understand where the dissonance wants to go each time. So even if we do get a false relation, not the right type of false relation, I believe. It needs to be that kind of thing. I've got that wrong, I think. Anyway. That was the other thing, the idea of this hierarchy of dissonance, and I think I hadn't quite twigged on the fact that this hierarchy of dissonance is going to require a totally new way of thinking about what notes are actually dissonant in a chord and which notes aren't. Because, again, I feel like I'm going round in circles here, but the fact that that is not dissonant, but say this is... that kind of thing. Is going to take a bit of getting used to. Finding those chords through muscle memory even longer, I think. Even thinking about what the available dissonance is in those kind of chords scrambles my brain, frankly. And I'm also on the horizon aware of this idea of tensions, unacceptable tensions again, which I'm really scared to think about, because to me, again, it's all unacceptable, or it's like all unavailable dissonance. That breaks all the rules already, and especially something like breaks even more rules. And again, that kind of funky chord breaks almost every rule of that being a G chord. Like, okay, well, we've got a sixth. No sixth in a G chord. It's not a G chord if it has a sixth. It's now probably an E flat chord of some kind. And no minor third and major third. And the seventh is already suspect, but we'll allow it because you can have those in dominant sevenths. And you can have them in minor sevenths too if it's en route to somewhere. So the only note, to me, that makes sense in isolation is the G. And the rest, only one at a time makes sense. Or maybe two at a time. Those two would make sense. These two would make sense. If it was a different chord entirely, an E flat chord, those don't make sense in isolation. These don't make sense because an augmented chord, again, is not really something I class as a chord. It is something en route to something else, like so. That's a 5 chord with a suspended 6 above it, like 6th degree of the chord above it, waiting to resolve. So each one of these dissonances is already like frying my understanding of music theory, because I'm thinking, okay, dominant 7th, okay, E flat 7 chord, no, E flat, just E flat major chord, sorry. Okay, a whole tone chord, 3 put together, what do I do with that? And you're not allowed to resolve tension one by one because, or maybe you are, but I don't know how to do it, so that feels slightly less tense, but that's still not released enough. This A flat is still not in the right place. This E flat is still not in the right place. So how I would unwind this chord would be kind of thing. I understand what to do next. Once I've unwound it in a certain way, then the rest jumps out at me. It's like, okay, it's a style with that kind of level of dissonance that you need to add in. Okay, so they were the main points that I saw. Let me just see if there's anything I missed that is interesting to talk about. Yeah, dominant 7th chord can be considered much higher on the tension scale. Dominant 7th increasingly so. Dominant 7th sharp 11 increasingly so. And then there's a few things that I kind of half knew already, but I haven't tried yet. So try going between F major 7 and C major 7 back and forth, and let your ear pick out how they sound. Root in the right. Play it without the root in the right hand. Yes. Okay. So kind of like a. Is that what you mean? Tried in multiple inversions. F major 7 in Bach and 4th, and let your ear pick up how they sound. Basically build an E minor chord in the right hand. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to try this in a few different inversions. These two are already in the right place, so I guess I need to go up and down, up and up at the bottom. Yeah. Yeah. Find your way through all the weeds. That's certainly the case. Many weeds to find my way through. Anyway, sorry, I'm just reading this comment again. I'm just so pleased that someone found the time. Controlled Chaos, cool name. Found the time to leave that for me. So thank you very much. Genuinely very insightful comment, and useful to have something guided towards me, rather than just reading all of these very vague ideas online, some of which are way over my head and some of which I kind of know already because I know the harmony stuff, like basic harmony stuff. So it's good to have something more targeted from someone who knows a bit more. Anyway, I have this giant book, no sponsor obviously, because about 10 people will watch this video. And I thought I'd just look at some of these inversions here. I find this book very dense, to be honest. I think it's good, but it's not really aimed at someone who's never tried jazz before, for sure. He glosses through the simple stuff and then it's right into the complicated stuff straight away. So, the way he says to play these chords is the simplest 3-note voicing idea. And I just want to build this from the ground up. I think every time, I tried to do this years ago and it didn't land. So every time I do this, I get a little bit better. The simple 3-note voicing that he suggests is 2-5-1, obviously, to D minor, without the 5, but with the 7 and the 3 above. I should be down the octave, but it's a bit far away from the camera, so. And then to this chord, G. You can't really see. I wonder if it's easier if I bring the camera closer while we do this bit. That's probably much better, isn't it? And I'll make sure I lean back. Maybe I'll move that a little bit out of the way too. Right. Okay, sorry. Very unprofessional. This is another thing. I have no plan on making my videos any more professional because this is mostly because I want time to do other things in my life and I don't have time to learn how to edit. And I also don't want to think about that stuff. So this is just always, by the way, don't get your hopes up that these will ever be any more professional. This is always just going to be me rambling into a camera and playing things and speaking too fast so that you can't hear what I'm saying. So that is unfortunately the situation as it is and as it will proceed from here on. Where was I? 2-5-1 in 3-note inversion. 3-note kind of chord voicing. So D, F and C. C and F. With no 5. Etc. So let's apply this to the piece I've got. There's our 1 chord. Now our next chord is a G chord. And that means that we need to move all of our fingers. So let's see the smallest amount of movement I can move it. And then we want to move it to our 2 chord, which is C, which is easy. Yes, that makes sense. Let me do that again. it says go to 3. This is, well, I've said go to 3, so. Much, much easier. And then we go to the 2 of our subdominant, which is already in the right place. So I think the voice leading there, I understand that voice leading. I understand that. That is a step that is close enough to have what I understand that I can do it. Maybe not fast, but I can do it. I'm going to just do it one more time. So again, to explain, the idea is 3 notes of the chord, the 1, the 3, and the 7, no 5. And what we do is find the most elegant way, which is something you have to do in most music anyway, find the most elegant way to connect the chords so that there's some voice leading. And if you've ever done choir stuff or tried to write any music for choir, which I have, not always successfully, the main point is that if you're a singer and you want to sing it, much easier to sing something like than something like up there, right? So if your chords are too far apart, they become less singable. And I believe genuinely that good music is pretty much always singable, and that really good music, even the internal lines are singable. So everything there can make some kind of logical connection from one note to the next. So that's always something I like to try and think about. This idea that notes are connected intrinsically in lines, so here to here. All of that would make sense to sing whether you're singing the bass or the middle, the alto, or the soprano at the top. Anyway, back to this one. So we go from here to here, then to C, and to F, and to B flat. Oh no, we go to D there. Let's do that one more time. Why does that one not make sense? Oh no, again I've done it. Okay, that's alright. You'll notice the end of the song where it goes 3. I understand. This isn't in the original. This is from one of those tutorials I watched by, I think it was Noah Kelman, and is that the right name? It's just literally the first minute, and I was lost. But I slowly ran through those chords that he played at lightning speed, and I tried to work out what they were. And that's what's formed the fundamental idea for what I'm working with. And when he goes through, because it happens twice, this way. He goes to D minor here, which makes no sense if you're playing it straight, but it makes more sense in jazz if you're thinking about voice leading, because leads to G, which leads to E, whether it's G minor or G7. D leads to G nicely, just one tiny movement, or you can go down twice, which leads to C via one tiny movement, or even fewer if you want to do the dominant 7th. Anyway, so I think I get the hang of that bit. Let's do the dominant 7 section too, because I always neglect this, but I think it's important. So that's the D7 to G7 to C7 to F7 and then back to B. So these descending tritones are our friend, apparently. 3 and 7 on each, very abrasive in my opinion. continue that forever, but we won't. So, fine. Let's see what the next little suggestion is, because I think this is going to be much, much harder. See, I don't think I'm meant to talk about this yet. Okay, I want to talk about this because it makes no sense. So C6. That's not a progression. Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to ignore that. Sus and Phrygian chords I'm going to ignore because it's too complicated. I mean, believe me, I've looked through this before. What I'm looking for are voicings that I can just go and practice. But have I missed something here? I don't think so. Left hand voicings, this is it. This is the one. Right, so I need to go back and learn all about that stuff. I don't understand that stuff. This is where I start to lose it because none of this makes any sense to me anymore. So 2-5-1. D, G, C, D. Take the root away, we get incomprehensible chords that don't include the root anymore. That is apparently, now I need to write this down, I think. So for D minor 7, so for minor 7s, 3, 5, 7, 9, that's easy. For 7s, 7, this is the complicated one, 7 at the bottom for now, 9, 3, 13. And then for major 7s, 3, 6, 9. So not even satisfied with just removing the root and adding the 9, we've also got to substitute the 7 for the 6 on the major chords. So this is going to take a while to get used to. But I'm going to blast through it anyway. So we've got B flat major, major chord, which is going to be, come down here, well, we'll stay in the middle. That's the 3, the 5, the 6. It's just ridiculous. Sorry, to me this is ridiculous. This is a B flat major chord. I mean, it's just insane. That is very clearly, to me, not a B flat major chord. But if we add the B flat underneath, I suppose I hear it. I hear this shape. And the G is there for colour, I suppose. Am I definitely recording this video? Because it's been going a long time. Good. That's a B flat chord. So the key is hearing in my mind that B flat. There. Otherwise it loses all contextualization. And I suppose in the right hand I'll be going like. B flat shapes of some kind. By the way, I can't do any right hand improv yet. I haven't learned how, so I'm ignoring that. So, where were we? Then we go to 6, so G minor, that's a minor chord, that's an easy one. We take these notes, which means I need to go to here. Nice, nice, nice. Another minor chord. So we go. Now the incredibly complex moment of the dominant 7th, which is we're just here. And we go to the 7, the 9, the 3, and the 13. The 3, the 7, the 9, and the 13. So the 3 is the A. 7 is the A flat, the E flat. The 13 is the D. No. That... Oh. It's that chord. I've seen that chord before. Oh. That's the thing. I wouldn't know how to position that chord, really. So what note's wrong? Just the B flat. It sounds way too clashy, you know. So would I omit a note in this case? Or this one? Or would I have that clash? Okay, let's go back. So this is another really important note. If it goes 2 to 5, move the 7 down. That's all I need to do. And it'll just turn into the next chord. And I suppose that's the beauty of this one. I don't think I want to play that as... maybe I'll do. For now, I'm not going to question anything. I'm just going to do what it says. D minor is apparently this. Apparently that's what it is. And then we go to G minor. Makes so much more sense this time. Move the 7 down and we've got our chord. Cool. Okay, and then D, that's a 2. So all we do. Oh, this makes so much more sense. Oh. That's all it is. Okay. Oh man. Okay, it makes so much more sense now. Let's do that last one. So we got. Because. Oh, sorry. I know I'm not actually explaining why this makes sense, but the ease of motion is so much easier, and I believe probably that's where these chords come from. Kind of hanging on to notes from the previous chord rather than anticipating the next one in some ways. So let me demonstrate. F minor, 3, 5, 7, 9, moving to, so that's the 2 of the chord. If we're in E flat major, which we are for a moment, that's 2, that's 5, apparently. I'm not going to question it. That's 5, and all we have to do is slide 1 note down. And to get to 1, we can hang on to these 2 middle notes because that's the 6. Wait. No, we can't. Oh, we can't. It has to be the 5 and the 6. Okay, never mind. I was wrong. But we've already got the G, so maybe all we have to do is... this. But then we lose that bite at the bottom, though. minor 7 is straightforward. Another minor 7 that's straightforward. I don't buy that that's the right chord there. I'm not going to question it. But I should have the 3 or the 7 at the bottom. So let's do that last bit again. That's not the 3 or the 7 at the bottom. Okay, got it. Okay, slowly. Slowly with the right hand. That's it, isn't it? It's a B flat chord. I'm going to play super basically in the right, by the way. Oh, that's another, but I'm going to interrupt myself here. This is a chord that I think fits into jazz, but it's not, as far as I'm aware, something that is most commonly used in jazz. It's most commonly used in things like Liszt and late romantic harmony. Because, and Mozart too, actually. Just all the way through, from when you want that mushy sound. You might be thinking, how's that a mushy sound? Let's go. I love that. I use that in my own compositions, which I need to upload, by the way. I've written so much music that I haven't uploaded. I uploaded loads right at the start and then deleted it because I didn't want it out in the world. But I need to start recording live some of my music and uploading it. I need to do it because it's stupid. I've got it all on paper. I've never recorded it, but I think some of it is quite good. Unfortunately, some of it's for like groups, so one's for a choir, one's for a trio. Anyway, where was I? I've gone on 2 tangents now, so I'm going to go back a tangent, back to this chord. That is just something I had to discover through using my ear, listening, and looking at different sheet music and figuring out what that is, which is, to all intents and purposes, a dominant 7 with a suspended 6. And what I mean by that is there's an F1, the 3 is here, except it's not, it's up here, but it exists, so we'll say the 3 is there. The 5 doesn't exist because it's suspended. The 6 falls down to the 5, and that's all the way up here. And in between we have the 7. And the chord, as it's fully resolved, is the C falling down here. And that there is a pure F7 chord that will nicely resolve to B flat. But the beautiful thing about this chord is if you go to a D, or even just an F sharp, then you get another bit. An even more dissonant chord. This is a D. And these are 2 chords that I'm very comfortable using in my own writing. So I understand keenly, I think, in that context, the importance of the 3 and the 7. And also the idea of added dissonance that can guide the harmony, because the ambiguity of these two notes means that that note fits underneath, that this note fits underneath, which also leads to this note fitting underneath with a bit of tension here. Resolves to there. And again, I think this is the beauty. This is something that I think is well established in jazz, even more so probably than in classical music. But the beauty of using tritones and diminished chords in particular in classical music. You take that, you can resolve that in any direction. Each one of those will lead to a different key. Let me demonstrate. Say you've got this. We'll start at the top. Will lead to there. This one will lead to there. Will lead to there. Will lead to there. And they all, if you take them all out of context, just isolate them, they'll all sound perfectly natural doing that. And so a dissonant diminished chord there is really good for finding a new direction in the music. If you've got yourself into a corner, you need to quickly get back to a home key, you can just sit on a diminished chord for a moment. You know, wait for it to die down and wait for the effect of the previous key. So say you've come over it from, say you've gone from A minor and you need to get back to F sharp minor, a big jump. There's a few ways of doing that. And this is probably not the way I would choose, but it is possible to do something like... pretty cool effect overall, ignoring my terrible playing. It's a pretty cool effect to let that ambiguity sit for a moment before you realise what direction you're going to be going in. So as soon as you hear that note shifting from this totally symmetrical chord that has no centre to something that does have a centre, your ear is ready for the next step, which is obviously going to either be this or this. It doesn't matter which. Probably, I always like the minor, but it's subjective. So, where was I? Back to it. Right hand with weird left hand chords. Here we go. So, we've got the... how does it work? Yeah, you got 3 at the bottom. The D. Then the 5. And then the 6. And then the 9. Third, second, fourth. Third, second, fourth. Starting on the 3. Third, second, fourth. Starting on the 3. And then I've got to remember I'm going to either put third, second, fourth. I'm either going to put the 3rd or the 7th in the bass. So I think... in this case we need to probably jump around a little. And I suppose if I so wanted to, that's now available to me. Now I heard somewhere No. Stick to this. Got the wrong note in the bass. third, second, fourth. Yes. Let's talk about five and the seven. No, the 3 and the 5. Sharpen. So in that context, if we were here, sorry, 3 and 7. Doesn't sound right. That's our D minor chord. And if we wanted to turn that into a D7 chord, we would need the B. But we need the E. No. We'd need... This doesn't sound right still. It is right, no, so... Oh, this is where it gets too complicated for me. The third and the fifth. The third and the fifth. But if I do it there, I've got nowhere to settle to. Right, so sorry, what I was driving at is that after that whole section where we get da-dum, da-dum, da-da-da-dum, we sharpen. The third and the fifth. The third and the fifth, right? No. Yes. I'm so sorry. That is the third and the fifth, right? I'm just in a different inversion. We could do something clever there. That's not right. Oh. We need to put that note above for it to work. To really sound like something is going on there. Where were we? We were here. Sharp on the third and the fifth, i.e. those two. But we also need... Not gonna work. Okay, and then let's go to that 7 section. Oh. Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm going crazy. So, for the 7 section, we need the 7 at the bottom. 7, then a 9. Then the 3. Oh, man. D, we need the 7, the 9, the 3 and the 13. So that would be, there's the 3, the 9 would be the A, the 7 would be the F, and the 13 would be the E. Okay, not far to go actually. So we go, right, that's clever. There's the 7, the 9, the 3 and the 13. Remind ourselves where we're going next. There's the 3, the 7, the 9, and the 13. No, that's the 13. That's the 7. Remind yourself again. And then we go to the 7, the 9, the 3, and the 13. It gets very muddy if we do that. Very muddy. Let's work this out gradually. So these dominant chords are either going to be... Now I might have to change all of this later, by the way. It's either this 7... 9, 3, 13 business, or it's that, but I'm not convinced you'd ever have that semitone in there. I'm not convinced at all. So in that case, that would be just a total change of inversion. That would be a 3. And then you'd get the 13. Easy to remember, 3 then 13. And then the 7. And then the 9. So I think these 5 chords are going to link really super nice, depending on which inversion you choose, by just alternating from one to the other. So let's test. You've got... By the way, it's freezing in here. Absolutely freezing. Well, 14 degrees, it's not so cold, but it's pretty cold. Alright, so you got the 7, which is not that. We'll do it, this is a D7 chord. You got the 7, the 9, the 3, and the 13. I suppose it can be a flat 13 if we're going to there. And it can be a flat 9. It's all starting to make sense to me now. It's totally context dependent. So, for example, if we're going to G major, if we're in C major, for example, if we're in C minor, and we've got E flats, but B naturals, then of course it's going to make sense to do that. But if we're in G minor, we've got B flats, and we want this E natural, or we might want, that doesn't sound right. I suppose it's that, isn't it? I'm thinking in the wrong key, that's why. Because it's that. We're going to have to just double check this. So it's that. You need the F sharp and you need the C. Yeah, I see. These are changeable. And that's what I was doing before. I was changing those anyway. Okay, but now I understand more why. So, what we're doing is going from this inversion with the 7 at the bottom. The next inversion is going to be a G with the 3 at the bottom, which is going to be By the way, funny story. It's actually not remotely funny, sorry. It is a story though, a bad story. I used to call this an N-harmonic scale. For some stupid reason. And it's because I just misheard it one day, about 10 years ago. I've called that an N-harmonic scale for 10 years. And I recently realised it's an octatonic scale, which is something entirely different. N-harmonic scale, I'm not even sure is a thing. But apparently this is cool because I've used this in a piece recently too, and it's apparently a part of jazz, the semitone, tone, semitone, basically. It's apparently a thing in jazz. And I suppose whole tone and chromatic scales are too, so it would make sense that somewhere in between would be. Right, where were we? You've got your D chord with the 7 in the bass. 7. And then we go to this chord, which is the B chord, the G chord. And then we go to the C chord. The C chord, which is just going to be that old thing again. Correct or no? There's the 9, yeah. The 7, the 9, the 3 and the 13. which is going to lead us really nicely to the final F chord. Oh man. Again, because this is great. So wrong on that one. The problem is I have to almost just switch off my brain because it's it's so complicated for me. It's just stupidly complicated. So we start with a 7, then the 9, then the 3, and the 13. So it's either the semitone clash on the outside or it's the semitone clash in the middle, and the 7th's on the outside. Okay, there's always a 7th skirting the interval in the key, and it's either major 7th on the outside and minor 2nd on the middle, minor 7th on the outside, major 2nd in the middle. Cool, cool, cool. Cool. All right, I feel like I made a bit of a breakthrough on this voicing anyway. And let's reverse it, so got to think carefully. Da di do ba di do ba ba da ba di do da 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 di da 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 da. Is that right then? Because there's always that semitone in the middle, right? Or on the outside. You get the 7th. Cool. And let's go the other inversion. I've messed it up somehow. No? Can I keep going then? That's the E flat. E flat, so we've got to go the other way now. So that's got the E flat in the bass, and then it's got the 7th. So then we need the one that's the third. No, too happy. We need the semitone in the middle. And the problem being, the seventh. Yes! They're always the same. They're always the same. So now the next one's going to be this. Now the thing is, if I was in... That's the seventh chord, right? That's that. If I've got that, and instead I'm going to F sharp minor, I'm going to have that. So we're in D flat, going to G flat next, which should make sense here. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. My brain is starting to fry. It's starting to fry. Third and seven. And it's the third in the middle, so the semitone. The seventh at the bottom, the semitone is around the top. There. And if it's in the middle, semitone's in the middle. So that one was the third. No, that was the seventh at the bottom, right? Yeah, that's it. And if we were to reverse it, it's there. So we go from G flat to C flat or to B7. Da, dee, da, seventh at the bottom, so it's a clash at the top. Da. So we take our I'm starting to lose it now. Let's go to that. Third is at the chandara. Right, that's our 7 chord, and that's where we are. So now if we're going to our B chord, that's our tritone, and in between would have that. Yeah, that's it. Now we've got a third at bottom, so now we need E chord, which is going to go to an A chord with the 7th at the bottom, which means we need that clash there, 7th there, and the tone below. No. That's it. Gonna find the 7th and the 9th first. grasp of it. Need the 7th there. Around here I start to lose it around G flat because I hate playing and working out chords around here, so G flat. And the 3rd and the 7th is regular there. And we get the semitone in the middle and the 9th at top. Ah, of course. So if we're going to A major, if we're going to D major, we probably want this one. If we're going to A minor, D minor, we probably want. Or maybe we wouldn't. I mean, that would be my logic at least. So where were we? Move the 7th down and see what happens. I lost it. Sugar. That was alright though up to that point. or okay, cool. Sorry, this is an unbelievably long video, and most of it was just me either rambling or practicing those dominant sevenths, but that was actually really super helpful. That was super duper helpful. So before we finish, I'm just going to play through the whole passage again. Let's see if we can do it in these inversions. So we've got for our B flat major chord, the simple stuff. Except we need to make sure it's either the third or the seventh in the bass. So let's go up. And then we move the seventh down. Yep, nice. And then we go to not the ninth in the bass though. Then we go to move the seventh down to there. Then we take our three. Let's think logically about this one. What's our ninth? No, what's our sixth? C instead of B flat. Right? No. As well as, no. Yeah, as well as, it's so confusing because sometimes it says 5 instead of 6, but this is 5 and 6. Right, so, okay, let's do that bit again. So we get our 2. Let's go over here. Feels weird, no? Let's go to the 7 next. There is no 7. To our middle section, which is what I just battled over. Move the seventh. Dun, dun, dun. G minor 7. No, F. That's E flat major. That's not gonna get any easier. One more time on that. Let's check it. So. Time, so it's 1 jump 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 da 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 dee. Let's move up to here da da da. Okay, seriously, it's enough because it is 1 o'clock in the morning. Oh my god. Alright, I will see you later.